Welcome to Chapter 13 of Class 10 Science, Our Environment. In this important chapter, we'll explore the delicate balance of nature and how human activities impact our environment. We often hear the word environment used on television, in newspapers, and by people around us. But what exactly is the environment? How do its various components interact with each other? And most importantly, how do our activities impact this delicate balance? In this crucial chapter, we'll explore ecosystems, food chains, energy flow, and the environmental challenges we face today. We'll understand how everything in nature is interconnected and why it's essential to protect our environment for future generations. Our environment provides us with air to breathe, water to drink, food to eat, and resources for all our needs. However, human activities are causing significant changes to our environment. Understanding these changes and their impacts is the first step toward creating a sustainable future. Let's begin by understanding ecosystems and their components. An ecosystem consists of all the interacting organisms in an area together with the non-living constituents of the environment. In simpler terms, it's a community of living organisms, which we call biotic components, interacting with their physical environment, which we call abiotic components, as a system. All organisms, plants, animals, microorganisms, and human beings interact with each other and with their physical surroundings to maintain a balance in nature. The biotic components include producers like green plants that make their own food, consumers like animals that eat other organisms, and decomposers like microorganisms that break down dead matter. The abiotic components include temperature, rainfall, wind, soil, minerals, water, sunlight, and other physical factors. We can see ecosystems all around us. A garden, a forest, a pond, or even an aquarium are all examples of ecosystems. Some ecosystems are natural, like forests and lakes, while others are human-made, like gardens and crop fields. Now let's explore the different roles organisms play in an ecosystem. Organisms in an ecosystem can be grouped based on how they obtain their food and energy. This classification helps us understand the flow of energy and nutrients through the ecosystem. There are three main categories: producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers, also called autotrophs, are organisms that can make their own food using sunlight through the process of photosynthesis. They convert inorganic substances into organic compounds like sugars and starches. All green plants and certain bacteria fall into this category. Consumers, or heterotrophs, are organisms that cannot make their own food and depend on producers either directly or indirectly for their sustenance. Consumers can be further classified as herbivores that eat only plants, carnivores that eat only other animals, omnivores that eat both plants and animals, and parasites that live on or in other organisms and feed from them. Decomposers are microorganisms like bacteria and fungi that break down dead organic matter and waste products, recycling nutrients back into the soil for plants to use again. Now let's understand food chains and trophic levels. A food chain is a series of organisms feeding on one another, showing the transfer of food energy from producers to consumers. Each step in this chain is called a trophic level. The first trophic level consists of producers or autotrophs that capture solar energy and convert it into chemical energy through photosynthesis. The second trophic level consists of primary consumers or herbivores that feed directly on producers. The third trophic level consists of secondary consumers or small carnivores that feed on primary consumers. The fourth trophic level consists of tertiary consumers or large carnivores that feed on secondary consumers. For example, In a grassland ecosystem, we might have a food chain like grass, grasshopper, frog, snake, eagle. Here, grass is the producer at the first trophic level, grasshopper is the primary consumer at the second level, frog is the secondary consumer at the third level, snake is the tertiary consumer at the fourth level, and eagle would be at the fifth level if it eats the snake. Understanding trophic levels helps us visualize how energy flows through ecosystems. Now let's explore how energy flows through ecosystems. Energy flows through ecosystems in a unidirectional manner, from the sun to producers, then to consumers, and finally to decomposers. However, at each transfer, a significant amount of energy is lost. This energy loss follows what we call the 10% energy rule. Here's how it works. Green plants in a terrestrial ecosystem capture only about 1% of the energy of sunlight that falls on their leaves and convert it into food energy. When green plants are eaten by primary consumers, a great deal of energy is lost as heat to the environment, some amount goes into digestion and in doing work, and the rest goes towards growth and reproduction. On average, only 10% of the food eaten is turned into the consumer's own body mass and made available for the next level of consumers. This means if plants have 1,000 units of energy, herbivores get only 100 units, carnivores get 10 units, and top carnivores get just 1 unit. This massive energy loss at each step is why food chains generally consist of only 3 or 4 steps. There's simply not enough energy left after 4 trophic levels to support another level. Now let's move from simple food chains to more complex food webs and understand the important concept of biological magnification. In nature, feeding relationships are rarely simple straight-line chains. Most organisms are eaten by multiple predators and themselves eat multiple types of food. This complex network of interconnected food chains is called a food web. Food webs provide stability to ecosystems. If one species declines, others can take its place. Now, let's talk about biological magnification, which is a serious environmental concern. This occurs when non-degradable chemicals like pesticides enter food chains. Here's how it happens. Pesticides used in agriculture are washed down into the soil or water bodies. From the soil, these chemicals are absorbed by plants along with water and minerals. From water bodies, they are taken up by aquatic plants and animals. Since these chemicals are not biodegradable, they get accumulated progressively at each trophic level. As human beings occupy the top level in most food chains, the maximum concentration of these chemicals gets accumulated in our bodies. This is why our food grains, vegetables, fruits, and even meat contain varying amounts of pesticide residues that cannot always be removed by washing. Now let's discuss one of the most critical environmental issues, the ozone layer and its depletion. Ozone, chemical formula O3, is a molecule formed by 3 atoms of oxygen. While the oxygen we breathe, O2, is essential for all aerobic life, ozone is actually a deadly poison at ground level. However, in the upper atmosphere, between 10 to 50 kilometers above the Earth's surface, ozone forms a protective layer that shields the Earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation from the sun. This radiation is highly damaging to organisms. It's known to cause skin cancer in human beings, damage eyesight, weaken immune systems, and harm marine ecosystems. The ozone layer forms when higher energy UV radiation split apart some molecular oxygen into free oxygen atoms, which then combine with other oxygen molecules to form ozone. In the 1980s, scientists discovered that the amount of ozone in the atmosphere was dropping sharply. This decrease was linked to synthetic chemicals called chlorofluorocarbons or CFCs, which were used as refrigerants and in fire extinguishers. In 1987, the United Nations Environment Programme succeeded in forging an agreement called the Montreal Protocol to freeze CFC production, and today it's mandatory worldwide to make CFC-free refrigerators. Now let's turn our attention to the growing problem of waste management. In our daily activities, we generate large amounts of waste material, from kitchen waste like spoilt food and vegetable peels to packaging materials like milk packets and empty cartons, from paper waste to medical waste, and many other types. The nature of our waste has changed dramatically with modernization and improvements in our lifestyle. We can study waste decomposition through a simple activity: collect waste from home, bury it in a pit or bucket with soil, keep it moist, and observe it at regular intervals. We'll notice that some materials change quickly, some remain unchanged, and some change form but not composition. This helps us understand the important concept of biodegradability. Urban India generates about 62 million tons of waste annually, but only 75 to 80% gets collected and only 22 to 28% gets processed or treated. With per capita waste generation ranging from 0.2 to 0.6 kilograms per day and increasing at 1.3% annually, proper waste management has become essential for public health and environmental protection. Now let's understand the crucial difference between biodegradable and non-biodegradable substances. The key difference lies in whether they can be broken down by biological processes through the action of microorganisms. Biodegradable substances are those that can be broken down by microorganisms. Examples include food waste, paper, cotton cloth, and wood. These materials typically decompose within days to years, depending on the material and conditions. They are environmentally friendly because they can be composted and returned to the soil as nutrients. Non-biodegradable substances are those that cannot be broken down by microorganisms. Examples include plastics, glass, metals, and most synthetic materials. These materials persist in the environment for hundreds to millions of years and cause long-term pollution. Why this difference? It comes down to enzyme specificity. Enzymes are specific, they only break down certain substances. Natural materials have evolved along with decomposers, so microorganisms have enzymes to break them down. Synthetic materials are new to nature, and no enzymes exist to break them down efficiently. That's why we can digest natural foods but cannot digest something like coal or plastic. We lack the necessary enzymes. Now let's explore waste management at the community level. Effective waste management requires coordinated efforts at the community level. Local bodies like municipal corporations, panchayats, and resident welfare associations play crucial roles in waste collection, segregation, and disposal. We can investigate our local waste management systems by finding out how home waste is collected, how the local body handles waste, whether there is waste segregation, how much waste is generated daily, and what percentage is biodegradable. We should also investigate sewage treatment and industrial waste management in our locality. An interesting aspect of our waste problem is the disposable culture that has developed. In the past, for example, tea in trains was served in plastic glasses that had to be returned to the vendor. The introduction of disposable cups was initially hailed as a step forward for hygiene reasons, but no one thought about the environmental impact of disposing millions of cups daily. Alternatives like clay culhads were suggested but would cause loss of fertile topsoil. Now paper cups are used, which are better but still wasteful. The best solution is to return to reusable options whenever possible. Now let's discuss special waste categories that require special handling. Some types of waste pose particular challenges due to their hazardous nature or complex composition. Electronic waste, or e-waste, is one such category. E-waste contains hazardous materials like lead, which can cause brain and nervous system damage, mercury, which can damage kidneys and brain, cadmium, which affects kidneys and lungs, brominated flame retardants, and PVC, which releases dioxins when burned. Proper disposal of e-waste is crucial to prevent these toxins from entering the environment. Another challenging category is plastics. While plastics are incredibly useful, their non-biodegradable nature makes them an environmental problem. Plastics are categorized by recycling codes: PET for water bottles, HDPE for milk jugs, PVC for pipes, LDPE for bags, PP for containers, and PS for foam products. Recently, biodegradable plastics have been developed, but we need to research whether they truly biodegrade completely or if they still cause environmental harm. Understanding these special waste streams helps us develop better recycling and disposal strategies. Finally, let's discuss what each of us can do to protect our environment. Environmental protection is not just the government's responsibility, it's everyone's duty. Each one of us can contribute through simple daily practices. Carrying cloth bags when shopping reduces plastic waste. Switching off unused lights and fans saves electricity and reduces power plant emissions. Walking or cycling for short distances reduces fuel consumption and air pollution while improving our health. Using both sides of paper reduces paper waste and saves trees. Segregating waste at source enables recycling and resource conservation. Using reusable water bottles reduces plastic bottle pollution. At home, we can turn off taps properly, use energy-efficient appliances, compost kitchen waste, and avoid unnecessary packaging. At school, we can use reusable lunch boxes, share textbooks, participate in cleanup drives, and start eco-clubs. In our communities, we can plant trees, educate others about environmental protection, and support environmental initiatives. Remember, small individual actions collectively make a significant difference in protecting our precious environment.